God be with you. So on this Good Friday, we take some time to remember our story. That story about how God, in wanting to repair and restore the universe, came into our world in Jesus the Christ to teach us a new way of being human and alive in this world. A way connected to God, each other, and ourselves. A way of identity, purpose, truth, and meaning. A way of justice and peace. A way of extravagant and indiscriminate love. A way that would transform the world to be like the one it was always meant to be. A world where everyone has enough and everyone has a place. And because of that and what it meant, Jesus was killed, executed, crucified on a cross. And we say this is our story, not only because this story is central to our faith, but because it is a story about the tension and the reality that we live in even today. That despite all our efforts, despite all we want, hope, and dream for, death happens. Injustice happens. Oppression happens. Despair happens. Betrayal, abandonment, and suffering happens. These are the things that don't add up. These are the things that don't make sense. The things that leave us reeling, lost, and confused. And make us feel like this is it, that this is the end, that there's no room for hope. This is a tension that we live. This is why this story is our story. And because it's that, we take some time today to enter into this story. Through words and music, we enter into it and we make it our own. Today we enter into it all to name and acknowledge this universal tension, to rumble with all the questions and feelings it brings up. And through it all discover a liberating and sacred truth. This truth that helps us live in this tension, this truth that will always lead to hope. And so my friends, today as we enter into this story, whoever you are, however many times you've heard this story, whatever's going on in you and around you, may you know that you are in the right place. May you know this is a good thing to do, that this is an important thing to do. And may you let yourself be present. May you listen deeply, may you listen soulfully, and may you let yourself become a part of this story as we seek out that truth together. And so knowing that this is what we do on Good Friday, let's begin with a prayer. And would you pray with me, please? So God, who is with us and for us, here we are, different people from different places, but each one of us confronted with a tension between our hope and the world we live within. So as we enter into the story, be with us. May we dare to hear it. May we dare to believe it. And may we dare to find the truth within it. So Spirit, may you hear our prayer.
we remember the story as if we were actually there. Jesus had gathered all of his friends in an upper room at a friend's house. We ate, we talked, we laughed, and we learned as Jesus talked to us about what it means to be human and alive in this world, and how we can be one with that creating and redemptive Spirit of God. After dinner, with our stomachs and our souls full, Jesus got up from the table and put on an apron. It was so strange for us to see our teacher, the one who leads and teaches us, our Christ, the one who connects us with divine energy that is holding it all together and moving it all forward, putting on the clothes of a servant. In awe and confused, we all watched as he gently washed our smelly and dirty feet, patting them dry with the apron, speaking intimately with each of us, blessing us as he washed. Finally, Peter said what we were all thinking. "Jesus, you can't wash my feet." Jesus answered, "I know you don't get it right now, but you soon will. I need to do this so you could be part of what I'm doing." And wanting that more than anything, we all said, "Then wash all of us so we can join you." "No, you don't understand," Jesus said. "What I am concerned with isn't hygiene or purity. It's holiness. What I am doing is helping you to be holy, to make you into a new kind of human, people who are building a new kind of world. Let me sum it up for you. Love. It's all about love. Love one another in the same way I loved you. Love God, love yourself, love creation, and love those around you. That's all you need to do. Love boldly. Love recklessly. Let that extravagant and indiscriminate love of God flow out of your hearts and into the world. Go and help the universe be shaped and fueled by love. Do love, and you'll discover what it means to be holy. And as we sat there, our hearts and minds blown, not only by this radical act of love Jesus had shown us in washing our feet, or even by the call to go out and do likewise, but by the idea that we could go out and do likewise. It was as if a whole new dimension of our lives had been opened up. But despite the joy, there was a darkness underneath it. It was almost as if Jesus was saying goodbye. But that couldn't be it, because he isn't supposed to be going anywhere. Sensing our confusion, Jesus said, "Don't let this throw you. You trust God, don't you? Then you can trust me. I am going to be with God, but don't be afraid. I'll come back and get you so you can live with and in God too. Besides, you already know the road to take there." But Thomas asked, "Teacher, we have no idea where you're going. How do you expect us to know the road?" Jesus said, "I am the road. I am the way, the truth, and the life. If you really know me, you know God. If you really see me, you see God. If you follow my way, and if you let my wisdom guide you, you will find life as it is meant to be. A life connected to God, each other, and yourselves. A life of repairing and restoring the universe in and through love. Don't be overwhelmed. you won't be doing it alone. The Spirit of peace, truth, and life will always be with you. So don't be afraid. I will not leave you orphaned. I'm coming back. In just a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you soon will. I will be alive again in a brand new way, and in that moment, so will you. Don't be upset. Don't be distraught. Peace. Shalom. Now, let us go. It is time to leave here. And so we got up, our minds and hearts reeling at what it all meant, but now knowing for sure that this was the end. Jesus was leaving us.
We followed Jesus until he arrived at a garden known as Gethsemane. He said to the group, "Stay here while I go and pray." Taking Peter, James, and John along with him deeper into the garden, he became agitated and said, "I feel extremely grieved that I could die. Pray and keep a vigil with me," he asked. Then, going a little ahead, he fell to the ground and cried out, "God, you can get me out of this, can't you? Take this cup away from me." And then, after a long silence, he breathed deep and said, "But this is the way. Not what I want, but what you want needs to be." He came back and found us asleep. He woke us up saying, "You fell asleep on me? Can't you remain with me for 1 single hour?" He then went back and prayed the same prayer. Returning, he again found us all sound asleep. Despite our trying, we simply couldn't keep our eyes open. He came back a third time and said, "You're still asleep? I'm about to be betrayed by a friend. Get up, it's time." No sooner were the words out of his mouth when Judas, one of our closest friends, someone we had spent the last 3 years of our lives with, showed up with a mob of men who had been sent by the high priests, religious scholars, and government leaders. They were all holding swords and clubs. Judas, we would later learn, had worked out a signal with them. "The one I kiss, that's the one they call the Christ. Seize him. Make sure he doesn't get away." He went up to Jesus and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him tenderly. Despite the betrayal, Jesus embraced him and kissed him back. But before Jesus could say anything, the men grabbed him and threw him to the ground. Seeing this, Peter took up his own sword, swung, and came down on the chief priest's servant, cutting off the man's ear. Just as we were all about to join the fight, Jesus stood up and blocked our way to the mob, saying, "Stop! What are you doing? What's gotten into you? Have you learned nothing about what I stand for?" And then turning to the guards, he said, "What is this? Coming after me with swords and clubs as if I were a dangerous criminal. You don't need your weapons. Put them away." We all watched as Jesus was put in handcuffs and led away. Scared that we too would be arrested alongside him and maybe even killed, we ran off in all directions, and thus abandoning the one we called our teacher, leader, and friend. As we saved ourselves, we all felt a tension descending upon us. What does this mean for our world? Does this mean that violence, death, and evil win? Are we alone in the world? Is God no longer with us? Were we wrong all along? Not knowing what else to do or feel, we fell apart in rage, despair, fear, and sorrow.
Early on Friday morning, the high priest held a trial against Jesus. When they asked Jesus about what he has said, he answered, "I've spoken openly in public. You yourselves have heard me teach. Everything has been out in the open. I have said nothing in secret. Why are you treating me like a conspirator? Question those who have been listening to me. They know well what I have said. I've said nothing that isn't true." Despite their trying, the religious leaders could not find anyone to witness against him. But knowing that he was too much of a threat, and that if dismissed he would undo the world that they knew, the high priest charged him with blasphemy and sent him to Pilate, the Roman governor, to receive his fate. Pilate came out to them and spoke to the leaders and authorities. "What charge do you bring against this man?" They said, "If he hadn't been doing something evil, do you think we'd be here bothering you?" Pilate said, "Well, you take him, judge him by your own law." The leaders and authorities said, "But our faith that teaches us we're not allowed to kill anyone. We need you to do it." Pilate went back to the palace and called for Jesus. He asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Are you saying this on your own, or did others tell you this about me?" Pilate said, "Do I look like a Jew? Your people and your high priests turned you over to me. What did you do?" "My kingdom," said Jesus, "isn't like the one you're used to. If it was like yours, my followers would fight back so that I wouldn't be handed over to be killed. But I'm not that king or kind of king. My kingdom doesn't work like that." Then Pilate said, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You tell me. I was born and entered into the world so that I could witness to the truth. Everyone who cares for the truth, who has any feeling for the truth, who listens with their heart, recognizes my voice." Then Pilate went back out to the religious leaders, and the crowds that had begun to gather in the square told him, "I find nothing wrong in this man called Jesus. It's your custom that I pardon one prisoner at Passover. So do you want me to pardon the king of the Jews?" They all protested, saying, "No, release Barabbas, not Jesus." Barabbas was a criminal. He had killed many people. Those of us who had snuck back to the courtyard to watch this all unfold were terrified and could not understand what was happening. How was Jesus more of a threat than that man? Why was it going down like this? It made no sense. As Jesus did not say anything else, Pilate took Jesus and had him whipped. The soldiers, having braided a crown from thorns, set it on his head, threw a purple robe over him, and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" When the high priests and police saw Jesus, they shouted in a frenzy, "Crucify! Crucify!" Pilate told them, "You take him, you crucify him. I find nothing wrong with him." Again the religious leaders answered, "We have a law, and by that law he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he became scared. He went back into the palace and said to Jesus, "Where did you come from?" Jesus gave no answer. Pilate tried his best to pardon him, but the religious leaders shouted him down. "If you pardon this man, you're no friend of Caesar's. Anyone setting himself as a king defies Caesar and the empire." When Pilate heard these words, he knew they were right, and he sent Jesus to stand for judgment. The people gathered in the square to watch Jesus be sentenced, and many people, including the religious leaders, the rich and the powerful, began to chant, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said, "I am to crucify the king?" The high priests answered, "We have no king except Caesar. We have no kingdom but Rome. They are the way we follow." Pilate then turned Jesus over to be crucified. Jesus carried his cross up to the place called Skull Hill. There they nailed him to it, hoisted it up, and crucified him. Gathered around the bottom of the hill were the soldiers who had crucified him and the leaders who had plotted his death from the beginning. All of them mocking and pointing at him. Despite all of that, Jesus looked at them and said, "God, please forgive them." The hours passed and Jesus fell silent, slowly suffocating on that cross, until he looked up to the heavens and yelled, "God, why have you forsaken me?" And at that moment, he bowed his head and he died.
After all this, a man named Joseph of Arimathea approached Pilate and asked to take the body of Jesus and give him a proper burial. He and Nicodemus, another friend and follower of Jesus, took Jesus' body to a new tomb that was in the middle of a beautiful garden. There, they anointed Jesus' body, wrapped him in linen, blessed it, and said their goodbyes before rolling a huge stone in front of the entrance. As the sun set, They, like all of us had, went home unsure what to do next. Their minds were still focused on what had happened on the cross. They were still caught in the tension of what they hoped would happen and what they had just experienced.
So that's our story. The story that not only is central to our faith, but also the story that we live within. This story that gets at this tension that we all experience. That despite everything we want to happen, everything that should happen, despite all our dreams, our desires, our aspirations, death, division, evil, the worst possible things still happen. And no matter who we are or what we experience, this is the tension that we live in. But here's the hope found in this story. This is why we call Friday good. This is the thing that we must hear within it. That because Jesus died on the cross, because Jesus experienced the worst possible things that could ever happen to someone, betrayal, abandonment, torture, suffering, loneliness, because he experienced all of that, God knows how we feel. God, the spirit of life, the ground of our being, the mystery underneath it all, God knows what it's like to be human. God can look at each one of us in the midst of our suffering, in the midst of experiencing the worst. God can look at us and say, I get it. Me too. I know how that feels. Yeah, God can look at us and say, I get it. Me too. I know how that feels. And here's the beautiful truth that comes with that. We can have hope because we know that we are not alone. If God is with us in that, if God knows how we feel, if God gets it, if God is with us even in the depths of life, our stories don't end there. We can have hope that the worst thing is not going to be the last thing. We can have hope that there's still something else out there. We can begin to think that maybe it's too early to give up. And so as we finish off this Good Friday together, may you begin to practice having that hope. To look onto that dark horizon, looking for a light begin to shine, looking for a new day to begin, a new chapter to begin. And may you know that you are not alone. But God is with you. Because God is with you, you can have hope. And if you have hope, that's enough. That's enough to get through all the pain and suffering and begin to think maybe my story doesn't end here. And to that, we all say, Amen. Let's say this prayer together. Let us pray. God, as we sit within the tension of this story and of our lives, be with us. Give us the courage to not run away from all that is broken, messed up, evil, wrong, and upside down. But instead, to enter into it. Into the suffering and death of Christ. Into the suffering and death of ourselves. Into the suffering and deaths of those around us. Into all the things that make no sense and shouldn't happen. Loss, injustice, oppression, despair, betrayal, abandonment, and evil. Into all the things that make hope so impossible to have. As awful, hard, and painful as that will be, may we remember the hope-giving truth of the cross. You are with us. You know how we feel. We are not alone. May your presence and this divine solidarity help us persevere and be resilient in and through our Good Fridays. May this help us have hope and be holy and loving people. Amen.